You are living in France, so you don't need any property in the US, do you? That overgrown field should be enough for you. My sister said to me with a smug smile. Our mother passed away recently. I had been living in France due to my husband's job, but came back to the States alone because my sister insisted. She needed me to take care of our mother. I had left my husband and son behind in France. They supported my decision to return. My mother passed away while I was briefly back in France dealing with my son's school matters. I rushed back to the States. Mom died. The funeral is tomorrow. Faced with such a nonchalant call from my sister, all I could muster was a quiet yes, as tears streamed down my face while boarding the flight to the States. When I returned home, my mother was already cold. I held her cold hands and cried bitterly. Then my sister arrived. Really, the property division? That overgrown field should be enough for you, right? Her absurd words left me stunned. Yet there was my mother lying before me. Her eyes closed and yet so recently passed. And here was my sister talking about dividing the property. My sister continued, you have a house in France, right? You don't need any property in France. Since Mom died, there's no reason for you to stay in France anymore. I listened to her, head bowed, as she went on and on. Mom really was a handful, wasn't she? In the end, with her dementia. It was so difficult. She saw me as nothing more than a home helper. A truly terrible way to die. I'm exhausted from the caregiving. But I wanted to argue back that it was me, not my sister, who had taken care of our mother. But my sister glared at me sharply. Well, it seems like she left a fair amount of property. That part of her was good. She even left a will before the dementia set in. She left you the field. Be thankful to Mom and me, she said and left. I looked at my mother's face. She looked peaceful and asleep. I wondered what she felt about this conversation. Mom. I'm sorry. I whispered softly. My name is Ashley. I'm in my 40s and married. My husband had to visit France for work. So Sean and I accompanied him to France. I work remotely, so I can work from anywhere. Sean was still preschool age. So it was a good time for him to start school in France and learn French. Thinking this, I had no hesitations about moving to France. I grew up as the second daughter in a family of 4. My sister Kate was always smart. Always scoring perfect on practice exams and adored by our mother. Kate is amazing. Looks like she'll get into a good university. On the other hand, I struggled with my studies. And was often scolded by my mother to be more like Kate. Our mother was a proud and strong woman, proud of her intelligent daughter Kate. And often neglectful of me, who she considered less capable. From then, I became unable to voice my opinions to Kate, who looked down on me completely and never argued back. However, I now have a new family. I live happily in France with my kind husband and adorable son. Our days filled with laughter. Kate, for her part, seemed to enjoy her single life. But everything changed about 10 years ago when our father died in an accident. And our mother's health began to decline. She was diagnosed with depression. Became reclusive, and after a fall at home, she became bedridden and eventually showed signs of dementia, night wandering, incontinence, and verbal abuse. Despite living nearby, Kate had been the one to check on our mother, but lately, it seemed even Kate was no longer recognized by her. When her symptoms worsened, Kate told me she couldn't handle it anymore. And that it was my turn since she had been taking care of our mother so far. Come on, it's unfair for me to handle Mom's care alone. She's your mother too. You need to come back now. But France is not a place where you can just say, okay, I'll come back. However, my self-denial was strong, and I couldn't argue back when Kate insisted. Whether she knew it or not, she overwhelmed me with her words. I have my own life, you know? You might think it's not much, but I'm an executive. I don't have the luxury of time like this. Come back soon. You've been living comfortably in France. So it's only right that you take care of Mom now. Okay? The dementia had progressed, and she said she couldn't handle it anymore. It was so selfish. But still, it was our real mother. There was a part of me that was worried. But I also had a husband and a son, and a life in France. Whether he knew of my struggles or not, my husband said, "Go ahead. Don't worry about us here. Make sure you don't have any regrets." And my son added, "Mom, it's okay. I'm listening to Dad." Making me feel truly blessed to have such a family, and with tears held back, I headed to the States. I'm home. When I returned home, I was shocked at the scene before me. Garbage bags piled up everywhere, no place to step. I gently pushed the trash aside and went inside, where my mother lay alone on the bed, surrounded by garbage. I rushed to her side. "Mom." Seeing her face after so long, I couldn't help but hug her tightly. "Mom, it's me. Me. Do you understand?" She said nothing. "Mom? Are you okay?" "I'm sorry, I couldn't come back sooner." "I'm sorry." She didn't say a word, just patted my back gently. Then a woman with thick makeup arrived. It was Kate. "Saying that won't change anything now. This person doesn't remember her daughters anymore. She doesn't remember you. Here's lunch." With that, Kate threw a bag of bread at our mother, who cheerfully said, "Thank you, helper," and started eating the bread. "Is this lunch?" And throwing the bread like that, as if feeding an animal. As I stood there stunned, Kate pressed on. "Now that you're here, I'm no longer needed. I'm counting on you. I'm so tired. Finally free." As she said this, Kate tossed her hair and stomped through the scattered trash bags to leave. My mother was eating her bread with a smile, a sight so painful I couldn't bear to watch. This situation was far from what could be considered caregiving. Disgusted with my sister, I began cleaning the room. It was hard to tell how long it had been since the trash had last been taken out. The smell was overwhelming. The kitchen was littered with used dishes. And it didn't look like anyone had been cooking. Packs of ready-made meals were scattered everywhere. The washing machine was buried under garbage. And trash had even made its way into the bathroom. "Mom, have you been able to take a bath?" Yummy, the bread. It seemed she hadn't even been bathed. I cleaned the room, hung the laundry. And by the time I realized it, it had already grown dark outside. "Where's the helper? I need my diaper changed." She must be referring to Kate as the helper. I was shocked to hear about the diaper. "Mom, you're wearing diapers?" "Oh, no, well, I could walk if someone just helped a bit. But the helper said it's better to use diapers. She only changes it once a day." I couldn't believe my ears. I knew my mother was bedridden, but with a little help, she could make it to the bathroom or even a portable toilet. But to handle it with diapers, and only change them once a day, was unbearable. I blamed myself for not realizing sooner. After that, I stayed at my mother's house and dedicated my days to taking care of her. She showed me her beautiful smile. She used to say I was verbally abusive, but "You're not like that, are you?" My mother was calm and smiling. Whether she recognized me as her daughter was unclear, but it didn't matter. I wanted to take care of her. One day, I had to return to France urgently due to my son's education. I tried calling Kate, but couldn't reach her. So I reluctantly called my aunt, my mother's sister. "Hello, this is Ashley. It's been a while." "Ashley? Oh, what a long time. You're back, aren't you?" "Yes, but I have some urgent business in France. Could you look after mother just for the time I'm gone?" My aunt agreed willingly. With a heavy heart, I prepared meals for a few days. Assured her I'd return quickly, and went back to France. My husband and son welcomed me warmly. "Welcome back. How was Mom?" "Well, she's in a situation where she can't be left alone." "I see, you should go back soon." "Thank you. I want to see Grandma too. Let's go visit Grandma when you have school holidays. She'll be happy to see you." I felt blessed. The happy life I had was thanks to the upbringing my mother provided. I had hurried back to the States. On the plane, I finally received a call from Kate. "Mom's dead. The funeral is tomorrow." "What? Where are you?" On a plane back to America. Good, then you can make it to the funeral. There's stuff we need to talk about. With that, she hung up abruptly. Wait a minute. Only the disconnection beep responded. Dead? How could this be? She was just smiling earlier. It hadn't been that long since I left for France. What happened? I called my aunt. According to her, my mother had developed pneumonia soon after I left, which worsened quickly and led to her death. Had Kate taken her to the hospital properly? I deeply regretted not being there. I couldn't stop the tears for losing my mother and not being there in her final moments. When I returned home, the funeral preparations were already underway. I pushed through the crowd to my mother's side. She lay in her bed, not blinking, not breathing, cold, but with a peaceful face, as if asleep. Mom. Why did it have to come to this? If only she had been taken to the hospital sooner. Why hadn't she been? I felt a rising hatred towards my sister. Then Kate appeared, wearing bright red lipstick and accompanied by a man. Ah, you've arrived. She finally passed. I had to restrain myself from attacking her. Why such a scary face? It's not my fault. It was too late. Kate spoke indifferently, showing no sign of grief. This is Mr. Thompson, a lawyer specializing in inheritance. Mr. Thompson smiled, greeting me and handing me his business card. I didn't understand what was happening, just accepted the card. About the inheritance. I had Mom write this while you were in France. A will. A will? When? While you were away in France. I was at a loss for words. Kate had forced our mother to write a will while I was away in France, exploiting her dementia. It's valid because Mr. Thompson helped write it. She showed me the will, which read: all of my property is given to Kate, except for the field, which goes to Ashley. You have a house in France, right? You don't need any property in America. That's why Mom entrusted me with everything. It was baffling. My mother was supposed to think Kate was just a home helper. How could she make such a decision? It seemed like a scheme by Kate. Maybe you staying here for a while stirred some feelings. You kept insisting she leave you something, so I decided to give you that overgrown field. Enough, right? Maybe you'll farm here? Coming from France to water the plants? Kate laughed loudly. Discussing money with Mom right there asleep. I thought to myself. I had already decided that I didn't care about the inheritance. So I agreed just to end the conversation. All right, Mr. Thompson. Let's process this over there. It's going to get busy. I wonder if it would be better to clear this land for sale. Kate left the room with the lawyer. Tears fell onto my mother's face. I'm sorry for having such daughters. My mother's funeral proceeded without a hitch. I cried looking at my mother's portrait, while Kate, not shedding a single tear, was happily chatting and greeting people who came to pay their respects, and discussing the property with Mr. Thompson. After the funeral, I went to see the field my mother had left. It was indeed overrun with weeds and had become wasteland. Mom, I didn't know you had a field here. As I stood there, gazing blankly at the field, someone in black approached me. Perhaps they had attended my mother's funeral. You must be Ashley. Yes? I'm your mother's sister. You've grown so much. My aunt? Yes. I've lived far away and couldn't meet you often. I knew my mother had a sister, but I didn't remember her. Apparently, we met when I was a child. I got a call when you went back to France. From Mom? Yes. Your mom had intermittent dementia. She recognized both you and Kate clearly. I was stunned. Mom knew who I was. Why hadn't she told me? Why hadn't she just said Ashley? It was a bittersweet revelation. She insisted that the field be given to you, saying you're modest and would claim you didn't want any inheritance. She asked me to make sure Kate didn't take it from you. I listened, wide-eyed, to my aunt's story. This field looks overgrown and worthless, but it's been decided that a large shopping mall will be built here. Your mom had agreed to the sale. My mother did? I was shocked. The sale price is $1 million. You should be getting a call from the town hall soon. I was speechless with surprise. Your mom was really happy you took such good care of her. She always loved you since you were little. She said you're a thoughtful and good child. She was shocked and sad when you moved to France. Tears began to fall as my aunt continued. She really wanted to leave you something. But since Kate wouldn't approve, she left it to you in this way. She asked me to tell you this. My aunt hugged me, and I sobbed in her arms. Mom. I miss you. I'm sorry. Thank you. A year passed, and I returned with my husband and son. Kate stormed up to me, her hair disheveled. Ashley, I heard about that field. Since the funeral, the field had been sold. And construction of the shopping mall had begun. Kate found out from the town hall about the sale. And the field's value of $1 million. She was furious. If I knew that land was worth so much, I would never have let you have it. Give it back. Kate grabbed me by the collar, fuming. That land is not going to you. But it's in the will. You can't just take it. Kate was surprised at my retort but quickly returned to her menacing demeanor. When the money comes in, you better give it to me. Understand? I almost got tricked. You're the worst sister. As I was about to respond, my husband intervened. Hold on, Kate. This will was drafted with a lawyer. You can't just dispute it now. And today is the memorial. Shouldn't you start by paying respects to Mom instead of yelling? Kate stepped back. What, are you two in cahoots? No way. You're the lowest. Just like a thief. You have the money, right? Give it back. Return my money, you thieving cat. Kate hurled insults at me. Enough. Grandma is crying. The room fell silent at my son's words. Why is this stinky perfume lady even here? What? What did this brat just say? How rude. Parents like parents, children like children. I'm your mother's sister, the main person in charge here. Your parents tricked her and stole her money. That's why I'm angry. Your parents are thieves. I was about to retort when my husband stopped me. Why aren't you greeting everyone if you're in charge? Why not join in paying respects together? Kate stumbled over her words. Mom and Dad aren't thieves. You look more like a thief. Other relatives began to glare at Kate, who couldn't stand being there and stormed off. I hugged my son. Mom, are you okay? Yes, I'm okay. You've grown up to be such a good child. Let's go greet Grandma together. I whispered, thank you, to her. Later, my aunt shared that Kate had been carrying significant debts. She had become addicted to visiting nightclubs, spending lavishly on her favorite workers. Even before I returned to the States, she had been taking money from our mother and pawning off our father's collection of antiques to fund her addiction. Kate was also deeply in debt with banks and consumer finance. And she even tried to borrow money from my aunt. During a visit, she quietly took a clock from my aunt's house. Knowing Kate's behavior, my aunt let her take it without saying anything, suspecting it would also be sold for nightclub expenses. It's truly embarrassing that the thief in the family is Kate. I apologize deeply to my aunt for the shame. Kate's obsession with inheritance stemmed from this. She had been calculating how to profit from the estate long before our mother passed, planning how to coerce her into writing a will that favored her. And she used my temporary return to France to get the will written, ensuring quick access to money. What cold-heartedness. But the mother we thought had dementia was aware of everything. Kate, living in a small apartment, was behind on rent and had been asked to leave. The family home she inherited was already up for sale. And she would have to move out after the reunion. Losing the house full of memories with our parents was sad. After the reunion, I sent my husband and son back to France and stayed in the States to sort out the family home. There, I found many photos. I had thought only Kate was loved. But there were many photos of just me. I had misunderstood my mother, thinking she had no interest in me. But she had taken many pictures of me, even adding words like beloved Ashley. Mom, I'm sorry. Thank you. I decided to take my mother's ashes and her portrait back to France. With the money she left, I planned to build a small grave for her. After saying goodbye to my aunt, I left the States, likely never to return. As for Kate, no one knows where she is or what she's doing. She was evicted from the apartment. I even visited the nightclub she frequented. But they asked, "Kate? Who's that?" showing she was not even remembered by the workers she had desperately attended. I left half of the inheritance with my aunt. If Kate ever reforms and is found, please give this to her. You don't have to do this. After all you've suffered, she said. But Kate is still the last of my blood relatives. I wouldn't want her to die destitute. In a way, consider it severance money to cut ties. I returned to my loving family in France, built a small grave near our home. And my son often places flowers there. I'm living happily in France with my beloved husband and son.